Hey y'all, it's Burgess Taylor from Journey with Burgess, and today we're going to be talking about creativity in more than just one way. Originally was creativity and perspective, and I think I'm going to include perspective. So we're going to start maybe with that because I think it leads to the other stuff. And I wrote down notes, so you'll have to forgive me if I look down. Hello, the squirrels and ADHD. Perspective is our point of view. It's our view on things. And if you were to break it down even more, perspective is a collection of experiences and assumptions gathered throughout life. So if we take creativity and we put our creative perspective into that, a creative perspective is a perspective from which that we view life that empowers our creative ability. It serves or doesn't serve us and our creativity, depending, where we look for a way to have our creativity be free, to be unbound, free to unfold and be true to yourself, true to your creativity, your creative process. Part of that's being able to spend some time exploring what our creative mind actually seeks. Like, what are you interested in? What brings you joy? What are you passionate about? Part of what our creative mind seeks a lot of times is a desire for a solution or for a different way to do something original. It's a lot of different things. I think a lot of us, whether we're writers or readers or artists or knitters or cooks or musicians or singers, sewers, sculptors, sometimes though I think creativity and our creative perspective is also about, it's embracing the fear. And I say that because sometimes our worst enemy is that fear. It's that self-doubt, it's the perfectionism, it's some of those very things. Biting that bullet and embracing that fear and getting out of your comfort zone, learning something new, trying something new, it can be overwhelming. A lot of times when things get overwhelming, when we are stressed, when life is filled with stressors like quarantines and elections and social media and news, and it can have an overwhelming effect on us. And then we're stuck. We feel stuck. We are in a rut. And sometimes we have to get past our own fears, our own doubts, our own egos, and we have to remember that we're actually free to create whatever we want, whatever we choose, within reason. I'm not a sculptor, so if I were to want to create something from clay or whatever, I'd have to learn how to do it, and that's okay because I can learn, but I can't expect to start something that I've never done before and be talented at it, be gifted at it, be able to do it and master it right away. So to me, creativity is making something from nothing. It's taking an idea, either to make something original, like I talked about, with my own two hands or with my own mind. It's a way to express myself. It's the freedom to express myself. For many people, creativity, it comes natural, but for other people, maybe they have to work at it. There are a lot of people who are creative who don't even realize they are creative. If you are coming up with ideas for recipes on your own, that's creative. If you are a knitter or a crocheter or somebody who does needlepoint and you aren't using a pattern but making your own, that's creative. If you are writing your own music. So, I mean, there are different ways that we can be creative. We're all unique in that creativity. We're all unique in that we have the capacity. We also are all unique in the way that we express ourselves. And our creativity can help others. Some of us are creative in a way that helps others. We teach, we give to others, we make handmade gifts. There are all different ways that we can use our creativity. Because of that, I think, like I said, creativity is a process for most of us. With that, we have these realizations, and these realizations accumulate throughout the process of creativity. Bit by bit, we go. Bit by bit, we go. Bit by bit, we go. Bit by bit, we're creative. The more creative we are, the more that we feed our creativity. So there are different aspects of the creative process. The prep, That's where we are gathering. That's where we're absorbing information. It's where we do research. If you're writing a book, that's where you'd be doing the research for your book. What genre? What setting? If you have a setting in mind and you do research about that, it's like, for example, my novel is set in South Carolina. Well, I'm from South Carolina, but I'm actually setting it in an area, but I'm renaming things. So I'm looking up at population for a specific time period and things like that. So that's where we are visiting places, reading about things, looking up information, watching videos, perhaps watching documentaries. We're at the library, we go to a museum or a gallery or whatever it is that we're doing. The next step is incubation, and that's where our subconscious is doing some of the things. It's called the percolate. We're letting things perk. It's where we do we mind map our ideas. We come up with more structure than when we were in the prep stage. It's the next step. But then we get to the insights, which is the third stage. And that's our aha moments. So we have done research. We've been formulating that research into more concrete ideas by doing things like mind mapping, brainstorming. We're coming up with these ideas that we've been letting percolate. I can't have trouble saying that word. And as much as I love coffee, sometimes when we are doing other things, those ideas that are in our head about those things and our subconscious will come to light. Like for me, oftentimes when I'm washing dishes or when I'm cooking or when I'm taking a shower, or I'm taking a walk, or when I'm doing something completely different than what that creative project is, things will come and I'll be like, oh, yeah. And then I have to write it down so I don't forget the squirrels. That's the concept, the incubation is sort of, we have this concept stage, and then the insight is where we have the creative stage. We get to number 4, which is evaluation. And this is is it really worth doing stage. So this is where we start thinking about, is this project something I really want to do? Are these ideas the right ideas for this novel, or the right idea for this art project, or the right idea for this whatever? So we go through and we analyze and we critique. Sometimes we can ask people for feedback. Sometimes we're just narrowing down our ideas just to make sure that we've made good choices in regards to our project. And number 5 is the elaboration. And this is where all the work goes. A lot of these other things are like the smaller percentage, whereas the elaboration stage, that's where you actually do the work. But what if you're in a rut? What if you're stuck and you're in whichever stage? So what if you're stuck, whatever stage it is, and most likely it's going to be the evaluation stage. Sometimes giving ourselves perimeters works, where like you have this, for example, you start with like a limitation of things. So as an artist, if I'm feeling a bit stuck, a lot of times I'll swatch watercolors. But what if I know I want to do something and I have this idea and I'm overwhelmed. I have all of these supplies, all of these watercolor palettes. I have so much to choose from. What if I limit myself to just the primary colors, or just the main mixing colors? What if, for example, I chose maybe to only use colored pencils? Or if I'm planning and I'm feeling overwhelmed with everything that's going on, what if instead of choosing stickers or doodling, I just use highlighters? Or what if instead of stickers, I just doodled? But I think sometimes if you really want to achieve something, instead of focusing really intently on the goal, on that goal of, hey, I need to do this, or hey, I need to get this done, sometimes we can actually focus on what we actually have control over when we're feeling stuck or in a rut. And we're like, I need to do this. I've got to get this done. Well, instead of focusing so hard on that, pick one thing out of that. One thing that you have control over, an action, part of something that you need to do. So like for me, instead of focusing on this whole room, I'm focusing on one section at a time. The more that I let myself think about the whole room, the more overwhelmed and stressed out I get. That's not working. It's not been working. It's not going to work because I'm overwhelmed and stressed out just thinking about the whole room. So I start emptying out some cubbies. I start taking some stuff off of here, Now, I've kind of been back and forth because I'm at this place where I need to have room to box more things up, as you can see. And it's been raining for the past few days. We've got 2 boxes in the living room and 2 or 3 boxes in here that I need to actually move up to the top of the loft in the barn to get them out of the way. Up in the loft, they won't be in the way until we get ready to do the ceiling, and they can easily be moved. I'm focusing on areas that I have some control over. And at first was like, well, I need to stick with a plan. I need to do this, do this, do this. That's not working. As you can see, like things are toppled over. That's not working because I'm having to move things in order to move things. I had to backtrack. I got a lot of the craft table. I got a lot of stuff off of there. I still have some more stuff to do. I managed this morning to change the date on the calendar up there. I actually managed the other day to change my calendar to November. Kudos for me. The more that I did these little things, the more that I was like, okay, what do I need to do? I have 2 bins that I've pulled out and that I'm going to go through. And I've got my trash bag ready because some of the stuff that's in these bins, I don't even know what's in there anymore. So I'm going to go through. There's going to be a bin. I'm going to empty out both bins and I'm going to reorganize things that are in these little cloth bins and figure out what's good and what's not good. I'm going to separate them into piles. And then when I'm done, I have 2 bins that I have organized. They can go somewhere. Now, some of this stuff, I'm not actually going to be boxing up all of it. David and I were talking about things, and I was like, well, there's got to be a solution. You know, I don't know that I want to be carrying stacks of books from here into the barn, from here into the barn, but we have to get the books out. We have to get all the stuff out in order to move the furniture. We were, you know, trying to come up with some of the solutions, and some of the solutions, some of the books can just be stacked on the floor over out of the way. Then we can move the furniture and then we can come back and get the books. But all of these little whatnots and things like that, they have to be boxed up. So I decided to box up some books to get them out of the way. A lot of the supplies, I've already boxed up some of the things. And as a matter of fact, I boxed up a few things and then later on, where are my Inktense pencils? They're already boxed up. So I have limited myself without meaning to limit myself, and I'm okay with that. It means I get to be creative in other ways. So if you focus on your behavior, if you think about things that you've already achieved and then go to the actions that got you there, what were those steps? And you focus on those steps, and I can achieve that same thing again if I just focus on one step at a time. And if we want to be more creative, we can actually return to the beginner mindset where we're learning things, or maybe we can relearn some things. We can take a step back and look at things from maybe a different point of view, which is something I've had to do in this room as well. So you can ask yourself, okay, maybe the first question is, am I creative? And yes, we're all creative in some way, even if we don't think we are. There's this myth about, you know, the creative person. I think many of us feel like, well, I'm not creative enough, or I'm not really that creative, but we are creative. We come up with, creativity is actually problem solving. It's finding a different solution. It's a different way to solve something. We can use these action steps that we know we've accomplished things before by those little action steps. And that makes us get in the, yes, I've actually done it. I've already accomplished it before. I can do it again kind of mindset, which has to do with your energy. One of the other things is putting rules on yourself. Sometimes we put rules in our creativity, and there's a difference between rules and perimeters. Perimeters are okay, guidelines are okay. I think for some of us, sometimes not, sometimes yes. I think it depends on us individually. I know I have perimeters within this room. I mean, I have to still be able to film, but I still need to go through. I'm trying to sort through and pick the things that I use the most to put in this, which is my couch case. It's an old it's a makeup travel bag or whatever, travel case. I've also got some other things I need to go through. I mean, at first, I had no idea where I even wanted to start. So I started with the craft table, which seemed like the best solution because I had so much stuff piled on it. And as you can see, I'm still working through things. I pulled some things out of some bookcases. This bookcase back here, my son actually already has some of his books in there. One of the things I think we ought to first think about is the continuous practice. That's one of the things that's the most important. Consistency. That we schedule in time to be creative so that we can continue our practice. Practice, practice, practice. That's what makes us better. It's what makes us more creative. One of the other things I think is sort of to prime your mind. And that's things like mindfulness, like meditation, like reflection. Another thing is to actually show up and don't wait on inspiration to come find you. You have to go find it yourself. And the best way to find inspiration is through discipline, is to actually show up. The inspiration will come because the more that we do stuff, the more momentum builds and the inspiration will show up. Another thing is to remember that done is better than perfect, as Elizabeth Gilbert would say. I think if we can let go of that perfectionism and remember that showing up and getting it done is way better. I mean, the more that you do it, the better you're going to get anyway. And if you don't finish it, and you're not going to get better at it, so been there, done that. Back to done is better than perfect. So if we trust our intuition, if we trust our truth and we are authentic to ourself, then that makes it much easier, I think, to do done rather than perfect, to keep going, because we're expressing ourselves authentically. And the more that we express our truth through our creativity, the better we feel, I think, and the more true to ourselves we feel, I think the better on a whole we feel. For me, what is also important with my creativity is I'm a lifelong learner. So I'm always learning new things. I love to learn. I love to read. I actually like research. I'm always learning more about what I actually do. Journaling, I am always researching or looking up things about journaling, about illustration, about art, about watercolor, about drawing. I'm taking classes. The more that I learn, the more that I realize there's so much still for me to learn. But I also realize that I like stretching my abilities. I like to try different things, and that helps keep me from being bored. Now, bored sometimes is a good thing because that allows you the space just to relax and let ideas come to you. If we are learning more about our own craft, but we're also delving into trying other things, maybe that are related to our craft, but maybe are a little bit out of our comfort zone, it can help us. Because, I mean, we'll learn, hey, we love it, or hey, we don't love it, or we're sort of about it. And if we're about it, it's okay. You know, we can take it or leave it, but at least we learn something. Another thing is, right on that area, is to take risks. Trying new things and getting out of your comfort zone isn't easy. That goes back to that fear thing. But I think we need to stretch ourselves sometimes. It helps expand our creativity. Another thing that I think is important, and that's one of the things I'm struggling right now, is your space, your environment. Mine is an upheaval. Right now, it doesn't feel sacred. It doesn't feel special. It feels like chaos, clutter, but I'm also remembering that the more that I can get this space boxed up and the more that I can get the barn ready to move in, my ultimate goal is to have the barn studio organized in a way that makes me feel like it is truly my creative, a sacred, special creative space, and that I have organized it in such a way that I will be able to work unbound and free, but at the same time, things will be organized so that things are run efficiently in there, so that I can go through things, find things easily, and use things with ease. So the last thing I think is to fill your well. Now, we have different kinds of wells. We have our self-care, individual, personal well, and then we have our creative well. Self-care is making sure that you do things like get enough sleep, making sure that you eat, making sure that you have enough energy, making sure that you don't forget to eat, which I do sometimes. I've already had my banana this morning. It is still early in the morning. Things also for yourself like reading, listening, taking walks, having fun. Those things fill our personal well, but they also fill our creative well. Julia Cameron talks a lot about refilling your inner creative well and your well a lot in The Artist's Way. I've been through that book a few times now. When I start to feel like I really need to take artist dates, I need to make time for me. Some of those artist dates include an hour of free time where I can just sit or lay in the bed and read a book, where I can put on my headphones and listen to a podcast, where I can put on my headphones and watch a video. Even if the room is full of people, I can go outside and enjoy some fresh air, take a walk, do a little bit of sketching, do something. We definitely have to feed our well as far as self-care goes, and we have to feed our well as far as creativity goes. That's something I'm having to remember because I really want to just get everything done in here, just pack everything up, go to the barn and just throw insulation up in the ceiling and put the paneling up. I want to do it now, now, now. And I'm having to wait to we're doing all the work on that during the weekends because that's when David is home. Unfortunately, last Saturday and this Saturday, David's working, so less time to work in the barn. Last but not least, I think what we have to remember, we can all know what we need to do in order to be creative or to be more creative. But if we don't do it, if we don't make it happen, if we don't put in the work, if we don't show up to the page, if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're not being mindful of our time and our energy, if we're not being true to ourselves and trusting our intuition, showing our truth, expressing your truth, our own truth, then it's not going to work as well. Our creativity, a lot of times that's when we end up in that rut or when we get stuck. But you have to remember that what works for one person or what works for a whole lot of people may not work for you individually. Or it may work for you individually today, but it may not work tomorrow. Sometimes we have to have a plan, and part of that plan has to be plan B, because maybe today I can work in this space with it being chaotic, but maybe tomorrow I'm having issues with it. So maybe tomorrow I'll hook up my headset and I'll kind of close myself off from that space and just show up and just do my truth. Or maybe I'm going to talk about my truth and I'm going to show all the chaos. And I'm going to talk about how, yes, it's bothering me. And yes, I know I have all these things to do, but there's a purpose. And I just keep reminding myself of said purpose. And that's helping. Now, does it help all the time? Does it work all the time? No, it doesn't work all the time. But it works the majority of the time. And I feel really good about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And that makes a big difference because when this video is saving, I'm hoping that I can get the last of that box boxed up, taped, and then moved over to the side. And I can go through these two cloth bins, get those done, and move those. It'll help. Even if I am moving stuff from one corner to the next until I can get everything done. I'm trying to leave my desk and what I actually work with, like my couch case, to the end. Once we get everything done, this will most likely be the very first thing we move in there, and then we'll go from there because we're going to set my desk up first. And like I said, it'll be the last thing we move and then the very first thing that we set up, because everything kind of centers around a few focal points. And one of the things that I've had to realize, and I've had to use creativity, I've had to do problem solving when it comes to how I'm going to put everything in there, because this room is laid out completely different than the barn. I have two windows and a door on one wall, which is not, I don't have a closet, I have the lofts. Like it's different, and I'm going to have to rearrange how I have things set up, and I'm okay with that. I've actually thought about putting my desk in sort of the center away from the wall and putting the Kallax units behind me and using the cord to kind of run underneath and covering up the cord on the floor, maybe with a rug. Do I want to do that and then have the other stuff on the other end? That's something I've been thinking about. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet, but it's something I've actually been thinking about because I have a whole middle, the whole floor of the space in the middle is this big space. So if I were to put my desk in the middle, I could put the craft table on the other, like make it an L, and I'm not sure. But I thought about making my desk and the craft table a T, and it's something that I'm still figuring things out because it may or may not work. We're going to see. But I want to utilize all of the space that I have in the barn. And the only way I'm going to be able to do that is through problem solving and coming up with solutions that are not in the norm, because usually we want to put the furniture all against the walls, right, in the house. But that's not something I have to do in the barn. I've been thinking a lot about different habits that help build creativity. I've been thinking about the different processes of creativity, about my perspective when it comes to creativity. And Amy Graham's word of for this week for Finding 52 was perspective. And I loved her video about that. I will leave a link below for it. It was a completely different take on perspective. And I started thinking about creative perspective because right now I'm in this space where my perspective in here is completely different than what I need it to be for the barn because it's a completely different kind of space. But I also was thinking about personal perspective while I was watching Amy's video. Profound, awesome video, really need to check it out. I'll see you later. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it, especially if you've made it all the way to the end. Bye, y'all. Have a great one. I'll see you again real soon.